This is what happens after one of my snakes lays a clutch of eggs.
The first thing I do is gently remove the mother.
Then I'll mark the tops of the eggs as they lay so I know which way is up during incubation. The snake has produced some beautiful babies in the past. I gave her a couple of seasons off, so this is her first clutch in more than 2 years. After I marked and collected all of the eggs, I put them inside of my egg box. This clutch of eggs wasn't stuck together like most clutches, so I'm going to use this egg holder to prevent the eggs from rolling during incubation.
Unlike bird eggs, snake eggs lack a membrane known as the chalaza.
So if the eggs are rotated during incubation, it could damage the embryo, which is why we mark the tops of them and try to prevent them from rolling. The next thing I do is candle the eggs to see if they're fertile. I'm looking for strong veins and ensuring that the embryo is on the top. All of these eggs look really good. It looks like we have all fertile eggs and no slugs. The embryo of this egg was not quite on the top, so I rotated it slightly and then I remarked it.
I'll get these eggs in the incubator, and in about 60 days we should see some new baby snakes.
After she lays her eggs, I give her a quick rinse.
This ball python just laid 8 eggs.
After gently removing her from the eggs, I give her a rinse. The rinse helps remove the smell of the egg, which in turn helps take her out of egg protection mode. When these snakes are pregnant or gravid, they often stop eating for months, causing her to lose a significant amount of weight. And she'll continue not to eat as long as the eggs are present. So by removing the eggs and giving her a quick soak or a rinse, helps get her eating again and back up to her normal weight. In addition to taking care of the mother, I need to take care of the eggs.
So I'm going to build what's known as an egg box.
An egg box is designed to maintain a high level of humidity inside. These eggs need to be maintained at nearly 100% humidity while incubating. This prevents them from drying out and going bad. Snake eggs shouldn't be rotated while incubating, so I'm going to use this egg tray to ensure that they don't roll around. I also mark the eggs to identify the top just in case they accidentally do roll.
I'll incubate these eggs at 89 degrees Fahrenheit, and in about 55 to 60 days we should see some new baby snakes.
These ball python eggs have been incubating for 27 days.
But how do the babies breathe while they're inside of the egg? Well, stick around and I'll try to explain.
After incubating for 27 days, these eggs are about halfway done, because it typically takes about 55 to 60 days for them to hatch. You can see that the shells of these eggs are soft. The soft shell allows for baby snakes to use their egg tooth to slice open the egg when they're ready to hatch.
But people often ask me, how do baby snakes breathe while they're inside of the egg?
You can see here that all of these eggs have a nice strong network of veins growing inside. And it's through these veins that snakes are able to get oxygen while they're developing inside of the egg. It may not look like it, but the shells of these eggs are porous, so oxygen exchange is able to take place. Oxygen is diffused through the eggshell, then passed on through the vein, which carries the oxygen-rich blood to the developing snake. And while all this is happening, the reverse is happening as well, where carbon dioxide is being pushed out of the egg.
If you look closely, you can see a little bit of movement inside of this one.
Now I'm going to get these eggs back in the incubator, but we'll check up on them again soon. Now this clutch of ball python eggs is getting very close to hatching.
These eggs are on day 48 of incubation, so realistically, in the next 7 to 14 days, we'll see some baby snakes.
Despite the humidity being near 100%, these eggs are really starting to dent in. And I can also feel that the eggshell is getting thinner, which is a natural part of the hatching process. As the baby snake develops over the weeks, it absorbs all these nutrients from the yolk. It's also absorbing calcium from the eggshell to help develop strong bones. So the eggshell gets thinner as the weeks go by, which is very helpful for the baby snake. They'll use what's referred to as an egg tooth to slice open the egg when the baby snakes are ready to hatch.
So that thin eggshell makes it much easier for them to slice it open.
Right now, all of these eggs are looking really good. I could even see some movement in some of them. The snakes inside are likely just about completely developed. They just need to finish absorbing their yolk so they could grow strong enough to hatch out.
I'm really excited for this clutch, and I have a feeling that we're going to see some amazing snakes hatch out. I'm going to get these eggs back in the incubator, but we'll check up on them again soon.
These snake eggs are going to hatch any day now.
These eggs are now on day 56 of incubation, which means the baby snakes inside are fully developed and ready to hatch.
This is a clutch of ball pythons, and one of the morphs I'm really hoping to hatch out in this clutch is known as a silver bullet. I've only hatched out this morph once before, and that was back in 2020. It's an absolutely beautiful snake, and when you have one hatch out, it definitely grabs and holds your attention. But they don't hatch out very often, because you need 2 copies of the cinnamon gene and 1 copy of the pastel gene to create them.
We'll see how it plays out, but even more importantly, I hope all of these snakes hatch out healthy.
I candled the eggs one last time just to see if we could catch any movement inside. The shells of the eggs are very thin, and I could feel the snakes responding to my touch. And here you could even see the baby snake moving inside. I'm not positive, but I think that's the head of the snake. And this is the exact sort of movement they make when they cut open the egg with their egg tooth.
These snakes are ready to get out of their eggs. I expect to see baby snakes in the next day or 2.
I'm going to cut this egg open to get a better look at what's inside.
These ball python eggs are on day 58 of incubation and they're starting to hatch.
The first snake to pip looks like it's some sort of banana combination. I love how the head of this little one is coming out of one slice and the tip of its tail is coming out another. The snake will likely stay in the egg for another day or two, and then when it's ready, it'll crawl out. It looks like this one pipped as well.
Pipping is when a snake uses its egg tooth to slice open the shell when it's ready to hatch.
After inspecting the eggs, it doesn't look like any others have pipped yet, but I expect the rest to pip in the next day or two. I'm going to open up this egg a little bit more so I could get a better look at the snake. Since the snake already pipped, I don't suspect that there's anything wrong, but I like to open the egg up a little bit wider so I could look for deformities or any other sort of issues. And it's also kind of fun to get a sneak peek at what the snake is going to look like. This little one looks like a beautiful cinnamon or maybe a pewter. So we haven't seen the silver bullet morph that I'm hoping for, but we still have a chance because there's 6 more eggs to hatch.
I'm going to get these little ones back in the incubator, but we'll check up on them again tomorrow.
These ball pythons have been incubating for 61 days now, and a lot of them are crawling out of their eggs.
You can see that there's a lot of variation in color, and they look absolutely amazing.
This first one looks like a pewter, which is a mixture between the cinnamon gene and the pastel gene. The next little one is a pastel, and it has some bright and vibrant color. In the last video, I talked about a snake being attached to a yolk sac by something called the yolk stalk, which is attached to the snake's stomach, so snakes sort of have little belly buttons.
The next 2 snakes are some sort of banana combination.
Right now, we're not seeing the snake's true colors. In about a week or so, the snakes will have their first shed, and that'll give us a better depiction of what their real colors look like. Especially with lighter colored snakes, it may take a few sheds for their colors to really show up. If you look closely here, you could see the snake's egg tooth. That's what it used to slice open the egg, and it'll fall out in about a day or so. This last snake is a great example of not seeing the snake's real colors. I think in the next couple of weeks, we're gonna see this snake get much darker.
We're still waiting for 3 more eggs to hatch, so I'm gonna get these little ones back in the incubator and we'll check up on them again tomorrow.
Our baby snakes are hatching, and another one pipped and crawled out of the egg.
Just have a look at the colors on this snake. It's absolutely gorgeous.
There were 8 eggs in this clutch, and all of them hatched except for 2. Since they haven't hatched yet, I'm getting the feeling that there may be something wrong with them. At 62 days of incubation, the snakes are fully developed, so cutting open the egg won't harm them. I prefer to let the snakes hatch on their own, but like I said, I'm getting the feeling that there's something wrong. So in an attempt to save the baby snake, I'm going to cut the egg open to see if there's an issue.
At first, I'll make a very small slice in the egg to check up on the snake.
If I see that there's an issue, I'll open the egg up a little bit wider to address the issue. I carefully cut the egg open, and the first thing that I saw was the snake laying upside down, which is not a good sign. The red that you see is not an injury to the snake, it's just from the veins on the eggshell. I could see that this snake is still alive, but unfortunately it is severely deformed and will have to be euthanized.
The vast majority of the snakes in this clutch turned out perfectly healthy, so I'm not exactly sure what would cause this one to be so deformed.
I'm a little worried that we're on day 62 of incubation and all the other eggs in this clutch have hatched except for this one.
This is actually the second egg in this clutch that hasn't hatched, and if it turns out anything like the last one, it's not going to be good.
I prefer not to cut the eggs open, but when we go beyond 60 days of incubation and all of the other snakes in that clutch have hatched, it usually means that there's an issue. So I decided to cut this egg open to see if there's a problem with the baby snake. We discovered that the other egg in this clutch wasn't hatching because the baby inside was severely deformed and ultimately had to be euthanized.
The baby snake isn't moving much, but it does appear to be alive.
I don't see any deformities, and the red you're seeing is not an injury to the snake, it's just from the veins on the inside of the eggshell. I don't like to do it, but I need to maneuver the baby to get a better look at its head to see if there's any issues there. The lack of movement was making me nervous, but once I found the head, the baby sprung to life. This turned out better than I expected, but we're not in the clear yet.
I noticed the baby still has some yolk to absorb yet, so I'm going to leave it inside of the eggshell and let it crawl out when it's ready.
These ball python eggs are on day 64 of incubation, and the last one crawled out of its egg.
Now that they're all out, I'm going to get them washed up and ready for their first shed.
After crawling out of the eggs, the babies have a lot of yolk and substrate stuck to them, so I like to get as much of that rinsed off as I can. But if I miss any, it's okay, because in a few days, the snakes will have their first shed and it'll come off then. Now that the snakes are all cleaned up, I'm going to put them on a damp paper towel. This will keep the humidity levels high inside of their enclosure. At high levels, the humidity is critical for the snake to shed properly.
Some beautiful snakes hatched in this clutch, and I can't wait to see them after they shed.
And even more importantly, they all look very healthy. The snake from the egg that we had to cut open still has a little bit of its yolk stalk left. I'll keep a close eye on it, but it'll likely dry up in about a day or so and fall off on its own. So the next big step in the hatching process is waiting for the snakes to have their first shed. After that, we'll separate them all into their own enclosures and offer them their first meal.
But for now, I'm going to get these little ones back in the incubator, but we'll check up on them again soon.
These baby snakes hatched 10 days ago and they're starting to shed.
We had a total of 7 baby snakes hatch and we found 5 sheds, so that means 2 more snakes still need to shed.
The ones that did all had perfect sheds and they look absolutely incredible. This is a pastel and I love those light yellows contrasted by those dark blacks. The next snake I believe is a pastel banana. The pastel gives the banana gene a brighter color and it also adds some fading throughout the snake, including the head. The next snake is a pewter, which is the darkest snake in the clutch.
It's made up of 2 genes, the cinnamon gene and the pastel gene.
And it's definitely an eye catcher. And I believe the next snake is the one that I've been hoping for. It's called a silver bullet, and it's a mixture between 2 copies of the cinnamon gene and 1 copy of the pastel gene. After a few more sheds, it'll get much darker and grainier looking. And these last 2 snakes have not shed yet. You could tell because their skin sort of has a glossy look to it.
I expect them to shed any day now, and once they do, I'll separate all of the snakes into their own enclosures and offer them their first meal.
Our baby ball pythons all have now had their first shed.
And they all look incredible. They're healthy and they're ready for the next step in the process.
The next step is to get the snakes to eat their first meal. I love the shades of yellow and orange contrasted by the dark blacks on this pastel. You don't need to feed the snakes right after they hatch. In fact, they won't even show interest in eating until after their first shed. It looks like we hatched out 2 amazing banana pastels. And right now, one looks pretty outgoing and the other looks like it's a little bit shy.
These snakes get the name ball python for this very reason. When they get a little bit nervous, they have a tendency to curl up in a tight ball.
These snakes are carnivores, meaning they only eat meat, so their first meal is going to be a rat pup. This little one looks like it might be a super pastel banana. And this one looks electrifying. The bright oranges, grays, and whites look incredible. I believe this one is a banana cinnamon. This last snake, I'm still not exactly sure on the morph. It could be the silver bullet that I was looking for, but it could also be a banana super cinnamon.
Maybe after a few sheds we'll have a better idea.